Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Fire and Flair. I'm your host, Adriana Egan, and today we are going to talk all about astrology. So I'm really excited for this episode, and it is full swing summertime shy. I'm so excited. If you can't tell, I got like my new summer hat, and I just like being casual and feeling all the summer vibes. I truly this year, this spring and winter felt excruciatingly long. I don't know what it was, not to like talk about the weather, but I was unwell. This year definitely felt longer, but it seems it has officially arrived. Thank goodness, because the sun is where I thrive. So I spent all weekend at the pool and yeah, it's all about the summer vibe. So with this episode, I kind of wanted to shift gears. A lot of the ones I've been recording were centered around like dating, relationships, how to navigate like using apps and not using apps and that sort of thing. So there was kind of a theme there, but I wanted to change it up. And as I mentioned in my very first episode, when I reignited the podcast, I am a spiritual being. I'm coming out of the spiritual closet. So, I mean, people close to me know that I am, but it was something where there's only certain people I can talk to about, or like when I say certain things, I don't know if it's always going to resonate with people or they're gonna understand. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. It's part of like this different path that I'm navigating and on. So I'm not gonna lie anymore and try to pretend that like this isn't part of me because I wouldn't be authentic if I didn't acknowledge that I'm just a very spiritual person. Some people aren't, and that's fine, to each their own, but like I know why I am because too many strange things have happened to me and like my life, the more I lean into it, the more that gets reflected to me externally. So I like to think I'm somewhat of like a vessel or a messenger when it comes to spirituality. And I see that play out with other people too. Like if you're either tuned in or you're tuned out, either you get it or you don't. So for those of you that are tuned in and that feel called to spirituality or astrology, then this episode is for you. So, that being said, it's definitely one of my passions. I think part of why I keep it a little bit like hidden and close to my heart is because unfortunately, there's so many misconceptions and stereotypes about astrology, and a lot of people think it's like a pseudoscience and it's not real, or they think that like it generalizes people too much. And I get all that. Like, astrology is not gospel, right? It's merely a tool, just like other things in our life are used as a tool. And if you go back to one of my previous episodes I had with my favorite psychic Raven, she explained it in such a beautiful way that I tell people now about how, like, if you look at the true history of astrology, it actually was used as a way to help people on like a psychological level before psychology was even like its own what's the word I'm looking for? Like branch of like medicine or like in the medical field. So like if you think way back when we had like civilizations that use like stars and planets to like figure out life, like there's a reason why. I mean, look at the ancient Egyptians. So all that to say, the blueprint of the sky when you are born does carry certain um like messaging or just themes within your life, right? It's not, you still have free will. Like astrology is not saying, well, this is exactly what's going to happen in your life. It's black and white. Like you don't have free will. Everything is set in stone. That's not the case. What it does though is it basically tells you where like you harness certain energies more naturally and how you can like ultimately understand and utilize that. So again, it's like almost its own form of psychology to just help you understand yourself on a better level. Like truth be told, I would not have a podcast if it were not for astrology and like having someone break down my birth chart to understand that I had this potential that I likely who knows how long it would have taken me to get to that point or like know that like I could unlock something in myself that would be so beneficial and life changing. Honestly, like I've talked about this before, but I have a stellium, which I will get to exactly what a stellium is, but essentially I have this energy in my birth chart that means that I need to communicate to people somehow. I have a natural inclination to do so. That's part of why I started the podcast. It was like that synchronicity, that green light. So, anyways, um, if you ask a lot of my friends, like I love doing their birth chart and trying to break it down. Now, I can't do it as well as like other actual psychics or astrologers. Like everyone has their own intuitive gifts in their own way. Like I feel like I can explain it on a basic level, but I'm not going to be able to like do it in a way that like Raven could for me. Maybe one day, but not right now. But regardless, I can still like help people piece things together because I understand most of what encompasses a birth chart, but it's crazy because it's so deep too. Like it gets down to like degrees and like math and stuff. Like it's a legitimate science. So for people that want to disagree with me, that's fine, but you're missing out because it's like a cheat code to life. So anyways, I truly believe it's a combination of art and science, and it's helps explain what's been written in the stars. It also explains the unexplainable, right? Like not everything is so scientific. There are just things that we can't like always explain in a black and white way. And we're not supposed to. Like we're not supposed to know everything. Like there's mysteries of life that we just kind of have to lean into with like our intuition. And we use our intuition as a guide to navigate life. So I am going to talk about different components of a birth chart for those that are kind of curious to learn more of like how to do that and like what it could mean for you and your life. Like I want to get into that because harnessing the energy of our chart and understanding current astrological weather can affect your day-to-day life. So there's like tons of podcasts and like social media accounts dedicated solely to like spirituality and astrology. So like mine won't be. There will definitely be themes and episodes and dashes, but it's not going to be all about this realm per se. Um, I don't identify as an expert astrologer and I don't claim to know everything there is to know, but I will help with the basics. So basically, a birth chart is like an iceberg, right? So most people are familiar with only their sun sign, but it goes so much deeper than that. It's like actually crazy. Like that is the very tip of the iceberg. So I'd say kind of the top is your sun, moon, and rising, which knowing your big three has become a lot more well known and mainstream in the last 5 years, I'd say. Like ever since COVID, it kind of blew up, oddly enough. But I had an uncle, or I have an uncle who, when I was younger, he'd always talk about like your sun, moon, and rising, your sun, moon, and rising. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I have no idea what this means. Like, it was like, I don't know, just weird woo-woo talk. And then come to find out, he was like onto something. Like, he has a whole book about your sun, moon, and rising and like what it means in astrology. And it's like very interesting because it adds another layer into like your personality. So, when we talk about the big three or your sun, moon, and rising, I'd say that's like your main, how do I want to say it? I guess like meat and potatoes, right? Like that's probably going to resonate with you the most. So again, your sun sign, that's like the date you were born. It's what most people identify as. It's kind of your whole like mental state, like your ego, like who you are pretty much at your core for the most part, right? Like your journey into life is going to be probably identifying most with your sun sign. Now, your rising sign, and this is why you have to know your time of birth. So when you calculate your birth chart, there's like plenty of websites you plug the information into. You need your birthday, so month, day, year, where you were born, so like Chicago, Illinois, and then your time of birth. What cracks me up is so many people don't know what time they were born. Like you would think that's something people would know and they don't. They're like, wait, I have to text my mom. I somehow just always knew. My mom knew, I knew, like, I don't know, it was just always inherent knowledge to me. But anyways, you do need your time of birth if you want to be as accurate as possible and to know your rising sign. So your rising sign is ultimately like your personality or the mask you wear on the outside. It's how others perceive you. It's like your first impression. It's kind of your like outside aesthetic. So mine is Scorpio. So I don't give approachable energy naturally. I've been told that by so many people. It's unfortunate, but I guess in a way it kind of protects me from outside influence that I don't want. Like I didn't choose this, I was born with it. So yeah, rising sign is kind of like people's first perception of you. So with mine being in Scorpio, I can come across as intimidating, unapproachable, intense, a little mysterious. Take with that what you will. And then my sun sign is Capricorn. So Capricorns are like kind of old souls, very responsible, very grounded, not delulu, hard workers. The bad stereotype or funny stereotype is that we're just all consumed with like money and work and like boss bitch energy. And then the moon sign is your emotions. So that is who you are at your most private self. That a lot of times other people don't see. It's your emotions, it's your inner world, it's how you mother yourself. So mine's in Virgo. And I am not a huge fan of this placement because if you look at like the main themes of Virgo, it's all about like organization, structure, perfectionism, being a little bit cold and calculating, analytical, and that is definitely who I am on my natural core level and how I deal with my emotions too. Like it's not an easy placement because when you're dealing with emotions, you want to be in like water signs, so like Pisces, Cancer, and Scorpio. Those are great to have for a moon sign because the water signs are the most intuitive and emotional and sensitive. So it's just like a natural placement for emotions. Like some signs just work better in certain birth chart placements. So like with mine being in Virgo, it is not because I like overthink. I don't know how to be in my body and just feel my feelings. Like I'm learning how to do that more as I get in tune with myself and more confident and learn how to trust myself. But oh my God, did I struggle so long with like not like especially that's why I feel like I struggle with like dating and romantic relationships because I think there has to be a logical black and white way in order to do something. And if I make a decision and it's not the right strategic decision, then I'm now like, I fucked up. Like, it's all about the perfectionism and the overthinking and being analytical instead of just like, no, what do I feel right now? How do I want to act on my free will? So yeah, anyways, that's just like an example of how I really feel validated by my birth chart placements. And that's not to say like some people like don't even feel like their sun sign. They're like, honestly, I feel more like my rising sign or my moon sign. Like that happens. Like you don't even need to feel completely like you identify with your sun sign and that you match like the standard stereotypes of it. It's to each their own. This is why this is an art, not necessarily a science, right? It's what you feel and resonate with. I just happen to find that my chart is pretty accurate to like my life and who I am as a person. So that explains like your sun, moon, and rising. I mentioned how you can calculate it and what each placement ultimately is encompassing. So again, it's like if you're looking at it from the outside in, it's like you start with your rising, which is your mask, your outside persona. You move deeper into your sun sign, which is kind of like your ego, your mental state, like what you mostly identify with. And then your emotions is going to be your innermost, deepest self that others likely won't see. So we think of it as like going deeper. That's the big three. So if you're new to astrology or exploring it, I'd say start there, just so you don't get like overwhelmed with all the information necessarily. And then when you're looking at your chart, you have, so like I mentioned, your sun, moon, and rising. Then we start going into the outer planets because with all the outer planets, they're in different signs and they're also in different houses too. So everyone has each planet in their birth chart. So I guess we'll start with the inner planets, which are going to be Mercury, Mars, and Venus. Yeah, Mercury, Mars, and Venus. So those are pretty tied to like your personality still. So let me break it down. Sorry, I'm looking at my notes here. Okay, so we have Mercury. Mercury represents communication, intellect, thinking, and travel. So it governs how we process information, express our thoughts, and interact with the world through speech, writing, and learning. Mercury also rules over logic, reasoning, adaptability, technology, and short distance travel. So again, you input all your stuff into your birth chart and you see your sun, moon, and rising, then you go to your Mercury. So it's how you communicate in the world. So like my Mercury is in Capricorn in the third house. I guess I should also backtrack and explain the houses. So there's 12 houses in a chart, but each house is each sign, Aries through Pisces. So I guess like another way that I saw this that where I could explain it is it's like when you're looking at a chart and you have, let's say, Mars is in third house in Capricorn. So the house is kind of like the stage and the outside environment. The planet is the character, and the sign it's in is the costume. So if you can think of like, it's basically like a character, right? Like, what is this planet? What character is this playing in my chart? So, again, just using mine as an example, I have Mercury in Capricorn in the third house. So, like, my communication being in Capricorn, it's very, a lot of times think before I speak. I'm not a blunt person. I don't just say what comes to mind. There's a little bit of thought in, I'm reserved in my communication, and I'm also like a little bit more mature and polished and straightforward. Now, with Mercury being in the third house is the house of Gemini. So that's naturally the house of communication and Mercury and all the things, which means that my Mercury is exalted. I know this is going to sound like a foreign language. So when something's exalted, it means it's amplified. It's in its natural home state. So that's where, like, going back to how I said, like, for example, if your moon is in the sign of Cancer, that's exalted because Cancer is the home sign of the moon. So it's just a good natural placement where that energy is going to thrive. Um, so then we move on to Venus. Venus represents love, relationships, beauty, attraction, pleasure, and money. It governs how we express affection, what we find attractive in our approach to romance, friendships, and social interactions. Venus also rules over aesthetics, art, luxury, and material comforts, reflecting our taste and what brings us joy. So again, love and relationships, how we give and receive love, our relationship style, and what we seek in a partner. Attraction and beauty, personal style, what we find beautiful and how we present ourselves. Pleasure and enjoyment, the things that bring us joy, including hobbies, indulgences, and entertainment, and then values and money. So what we prioritize in life, our relationship with wealth, and how we spend on luxury and comfort. So again, I'm not saying that like I ultimately think that astrology is gospel, but what's eerie is just how like accurate it is, especially for my life. So again, Venus is gonna rule. It's like love, relationships, how we show up, what we want to attract, how we enjoy pleasure, how we handle our finances. I have so many of my planets in Capricorn. So Venus is also in Capricorn, and I would say again, it's pretty accurate to my aesthetic, what I want to attract, what I look for in a partner. Um, I'd say like my aesthetic is very old, like I love the old money style and look and that vibe. Like I resonate with it a lot. And I had a friend tell me, like, she pictures my wedding being like elegant and like old money style. And I was like, oh my God, that's so accurate. Like, I didn't even say anything to you, but you just like picked up on that vibe. In terms of like the kind of partner I want to attract, it's always been like I picture like a businessman that works on like the top floor of a skyscraper downtown. Someone that has power, that's good with money, that is like I'm, you know, that song, I'm looking for a man in finance, trust fund. Not, okay, not actually that, but again, it's like someone that's like mature, grounded, they're an old soul, they're good with money, they're businessy, like that's just kind of always been my like vibe, and like other people have said that too. So I'd be curious to know what other people's Venus is. My Venus also falls in the third house. Like most of my planets fall into the third house and are in the sign of Capricorn, which is a stellium. When you have three or more planets in the same sign, in the same house, it's a stellium. And that is a huge, like, that's a very, very important placement in a birth chart. That's going to tell you a lot. That means that, like, there's a mission for your soul with why there's so much energy harnessed in one particular area. So, again, being the third house of communication, that's part of why I have this podcast. So, my Venus is also in the third house, which I believe translates to I definitely need a lot of mental stimulation to be attracted to somebody. Like, I like witty banter. I like to talk about anything and everything. Like, I need to feel mentally connected to you and be challenged. I can't just be physically attracted. Like, that's going to fizzle so fast. Like, I could never be in a long-term relationship with someone who, like, didn't challenge me mentally and we couldn't have, like, really good, deep communication. So, do you find that to be true? Now we're going to move on to Mars, the planet that represents action, passion, drive, energy, and aggression. It governs how we assert ourselves, pursue our desires, and handle conflict. Mars is the planet of raw instinct, ambition, and physical stamina. It pushes us to take risks, fight for what we want, and go after our goals in intensity. So it's about action and drive, how we take initiative and go after what we want. Passion and desire are sexual energy, motivation, and intensity. Anger and aggression, how we handle frustration, conflicts, and competition. Courage and boldness, our ability to take risks and stand up for ourselves. Physical energy and endurance, how we channel our energy and handle physical activity. Ambition and determination, what fuels our motivation and work ethic. So that's why they say, like, Mars is the planet for men, Venus is the planet for women, because it's all about like what that planet and energy represents. So when we think of Venus, it's yeah, it's like soft, it's love, it's aesthetic, it's attraction, it's beauty, it's pleasure. When we think of Mars, it's like physical energy, ambition, aggression, anger, passion, action, like all those like very masculine kind of like energy traits. So Mars is interesting. It's kind of like what motivates us and like how we push ourselves and show up and take action. So, like Aries is the natural home sign of Mars, right? Aries is all about action. It's the sign of the warrior. It's just like that fire. It's like go. Like we're not overthinking. We're just gonna go and do it. I'd say like fire signs probably thrive. If you have a fire sign in Mars, you're gonna thrive more. And so that being said, a sign like Cancer, that's very like they go into their shell and they like hide and they're very emotional. Not a great sign for Mars. So um, again, my Mars is in Capricorn in the third house. So what's interesting now that I'm thinking about it, Capricorn actually isn't a bad sign to have in Mars. I heard it's like beneficial because it's like when we think of action, it's not like quick sprints, but when I think of Capricorn energy for Mars, it's the marathon, right? Like it's the slow, consistent action that ends up getting us what we want and how we channel our drive. Um, and I would say for me that that's true. Like it's more about endurance, where like maybe if you have Aries and Mars, it's like quick action, it sparks. It's like, so it just depends. Capricorn's also about taking one's time and climbing the mountain, right? And being strategic. So a lot of times, like when I do make a decision, there's a lot of thought that's gone into that. Like I don't just take action. If anything, I probably overthink a little bit too much before I take action, but most of what I do is very well thought out and planned. So again, I do identify with the way that Mars shows up in my chart. Next, we move on to Jupiter, and Jupiter represents expansion, growth, luck, wisdom, and abundance in astrology. It is known as the planet of fortune and optimism. bringing opportunities, new experiences, and a broader perspective on life. Jupiter encourages us to explore, learn, and push beyond our limits, whether through travel, education, or spirituality. So it encompasses expansion and growth, broadening horizons, personal and intellectual growth, luck and abundance. So opportunities, good fortune, and prosperity, wisdom and knowledge, higher learning, philosophy, and seeking truth, optimism and faith, a positive mindset, belief in possibilities, and spiritual exploration, travel, so foreign cultures, new experiences, and adventure, and then morality and justice, ethics, generosity, and seeking fairness. So I love, love, love Jupiter because who does not love luck and expansion and like prosperity and abundance? So Jupiter is definitely like a fun planet, and it can show you where you will find natural luck, success, and expansion in your birth chart. Um, it's interesting the sign too, if you look at like the sign that your Jupiter is in. So for me, using my chart as an example, my Jupiter is in Scorpio, finally not Capricorn, in Scorpio in the first house. So the first house represents like yourself, like your ego, who you are at your core. Um, I will do a rundown of like the houses at some point because I realize that I need to explain that a little bit more too. So this is gonna kind of be like a lot of information overload, but like I said, take what resonates. Hopefully it still all kind of makes sense, or you can at least hear something I say and then maybe Google it, like be like, okay, that's what that means. No, but it's just like it's just so validating and interesting. And if you can even have someone you trust, like an intuitive guide or psychic or anyone like that that knows how to break it down, like they can give you even more insight too. So for me, I have my Jupiter in Scorpio in the first house, which means I guess like where I naturally thrive and expand is like how I show up. When I show up as myself, when I show up authentically, I am the one that generates the luck. Let's say, for example, that you had Jupiter in the fourth house. The fourth house is the natural house of Cancer. So that's like all about family. So if you have Jupiter in the fourth house, maybe that means that like you naturally are going to find luck and expand through family members. Maybe your family has provided opportunities for you, or you are supposed to, like grow a family and be a mom, and like that's where you thrive, right? Like who knows how that's interpreted. So anyways, with mine being in the first house, that means that like my expansion and my luck is like merely only going to come from myself. And more often than not, when I am showing up authentically as myself. And with it being in the sign of Scorpio, Scorpio is all about like, um, kind of like the hidden, the mystery, the occult, like intensity, mystery. So, it's interesting too because I also have Pluto in my first house. So it's a weird dichotomy to have Jupiter, the planet of luck and expansion, in the same house as the planet. Pluto represents like death, transformation, rebirth, like that dark underworld energy. And the fact that my Pluto is also in Scorpio, meaning it's exalted. So the energy's amplified. And when I had a psychic break that energy down for me, she basically was like, you are going to expand in like your life and find abundance when you go through like ego deaths and you like rise from the ashes like a phoenix. Like, so in order for me to kind of move through life and find my luck and good fortune and abundance, like I have to go through some pretty intense like personal growth, which like isn't a bad thing, but I'm like, really? Like I have to go through all of this in order to like get to that next stage? That doesn't feel fair. I don't want to die and be a phoenix rising from the ashes. But again, we don't choose our birth chart. So yeah, that's why I find it so interesting because who would know that, right? Like unless you took the time to break down your birth chart or have someone explain that to you, like you wouldn't know how to harness that energy or understand why certain things like happen the way that they do. And again, I do find that to be accurate. Like when I look back on my life and I see where I've started new chapters and where my life opened up, I kind of had to go through some shit before that. Like I had to do internal work. I had to like maybe lose things I didn't necessarily want to lose. So yeah, I just go through really, really deep periods of transformation before I kind of find that expansion and abundance. And that all has to come from me, right? Like, because it's in the first house. That's not going to really come from any outside source. It's all on me. But Jupiter is still a very fun planet to look into because, again, who doesn't want to know how to harness more luck, abundance, expansion, and growth in your life? And also, kind of like it talks about like travel, like spirituality. Okay, speaking of this, so this is where I have to like interject because this could be a little synchronicity too. So, for those that keep up with what I call the current astrological weather, so it's where all of the planets happen to be at like our current time. Jupiter just moved into the sign of Cancer a week ago. So astrologers have been talking about this for a while because they know like when planets are going to move into like different signs and whatnot because each planet has like a different number of years it stays in each sign, some longer than others. So like Jupiter stays in the same sign for a year. So it just shifted from Gemini to Jupiter. And as I mentioned before, some planets do just operate better in certain signs because it's like that natural energy. So like Jupiter actually does very well in Cancer, which is great. Like that energy is going to help the collective. So um you see where Jupiter is activating your birth chart currently because that is going to like make a difference and but see where it lies in your own personal chart too, like how it resonates with you on an individual level. So all that to say, with Jupiter now being in Cancer, it's activating my ninth house. And the ninth house is the house of the expansion, the growth, the wisdom, knowledge, travel, like spiritual kind of enlightenment and journey. And I am basically signing up for the spiritual experience. I'm not going to like give details because I'm very protective and private. Um, so I'm not going to go into too many details, but I'm really excited for it. And again, I feel like it's something that found me at the right time. And so I wasn't necessarily seeking it. I didn't even know that I would do this, but yeah, it just is going to be like this really interesting, sacred, spiritual experience that I'm going to have. And I don't know what I'm going to feel like after it, but it's like interesting because like this is why I believe in astrology because too many weird things happen, right? Like it's too specific to just be a coincidence. Like Jupiter in Cancer is activating my ninth house of spiritual growth, and here this spiritual opportunity presents itself to me this week. So it's like again, it's like confirmation that I'm on the right path and this is happening for a reason. So if you want a little cheat code in life or to know where your luck and expansion might be coming from, look at what house Jupiter and Cancer is going to be activating for you. Like if you literally email me and are like, I don't know how to do this, can you help me? I will do it for you because I think it's so important. That's how like serious I am about this. Okay, so moving on from Jupiter to Saturn, very, very different energy, like opposite kind of. So like Jupiter's like the fun planet. Saturn is like the daddy of the zodiac. It's represents discipline, responsibility, structure, and life lessons. So it's often called the taskmaster because it teaches through challenges, hard work, and perseverance. So think of like a strict teacher that busts out the ruler and they're like, listen, you better sit down and shut the fuck up because I'm not playing any games right now. That is Saturn energy, okay? So it represents karma and life lessons. So it brings experiences that test and shape you, often forcing you to confront limitations, discipline, and hard work. It rewards persistence and dedication, but punishes shortcuts. Authority and structure governs rules, traditions, and societal expectations. Fear and limitations represents where you feel restricted or insecure. Maturity and wisdom, encourages long-term growth, patience, and stability. So what's interesting with Saturn, why this planet in particular has a Saturn return, I don't really know, because not every planet has like the same journeys as like the other ones or the same effect. So when we talk about a Saturn return, it happens typically like at 3 points in your life. For some people, it might be two, depending when you die. Because it's saying that people have a Saturn return between 28 and 30, 58 and 60, and 88 and 90. So every 29 and a half years, Saturn returns to the place it was at your birth, marking a period of major life shifts and growth. It's a time of adulting, reevaluation, and stepping into true responsibility. I had kind of talked about this on a previous episode with like a Saturn return. So for people that are close to my age, like it goes based on like a kind of like a generation, right? Because like I mentioned, planets will sit in a certain sign for a number of years. So like for millennials, like a lot of millennials, their Saturn is in the sign of Aquarius, which I want to say those dates are like, it's like a 3 to 4 year period, maybe like 1990 to 1994. People have Saturn in Aquarius. So we've already experienced our Saturn return, thank God. So it's not a bad thing, right? It's like, it's anything in astrology is neither good or bad. It's more like harmonious versus challenging energy, but at the end of the day, it all serves a greater good, right? Like we have to be disciplined, we have to go through challenges, we have to like grow up and work through things. Not everything's going to be lovely and happy and relaxed all of the time. So basically, Saturn is kind of like where things start to shift for you in your adult life, like, or where they should. So if you think of like the time between 27 and 30, that's usually when you have like that Saturn return period. So I want to say mine happened, I should know this. I think it was like 2020 to 2022, or maybe 2019 to 2022. I know definitely within that period, definitely 2021. Like I know that was prime Saturn and Aquarius energy. So again, how this is so shows up so truly in my own life. At that time, between 27 and 29, when I was experiencing my Saturn return, I was living with my dad, um, coming off a long-term breakup, having to navigate like being single, sitting with myself, learning about myself, being content in my own company. I did not like my job at the time. I was like, this job was out of survival, like because I just needed something, but like this doesn't resonate with me. So like I need to figure out what it is I want to do and like redirect my life. So if you harness the energy and you're intentional with what it's supposed to be doing is getting you to wake up and be like, hey, it's time to be a real adult now, then that will be helpful for you because during that time for me, it was like my situation now is temporary. I know that I don't want to work this job. I know that I don't want to live with my dad anymore. So, like, where is it that I want to go? What do I need to do? How do I redirect my life? And I did. I was intentional. I took the time to think about it. And I said, even though things are kind of shut down, I would love to live in the city. I've always been drawn to the city. That's where I feel called to. That's where I feel most alive. There's more job opportunities. Like, I need to have a better, more big girl job. Um, and so I just feel like that like my Saturn return definitely was super prevalent and accurate in my life. Like I woke the fuck up. The universe literally sat me down, slammed that ruler on the desk and was like, no, we're done. Like we're redirecting. You're not going to keep repeating the same patterns. You're not going to waste any more time. Like it's time to get real and shift. So I don't know if other people had experienced that at that age. I'm wondering if like certain Saturn return periods are more intense than others. Like, I can't imagine that, I don't know, but they say like late 50s to 60s. So that's kind of when people have like a midlife crisis. So I'm hoping that like my earlier Saturn return was a little more intense than later in life because I don't want a midlife crisis. So the age periods it gives is like 27 to 30, 57 to 60, and then like 87 to 90. And I'm like, okay, most of us aren't going to live to our third Saturn return, which is probably a good thing, but you'll likely experience it twice in your life. So think of like quarter life crisis, midlife crisis. That is a Saturn return. So while it's not always fun, it still serves a purpose. So like for me, my Saturn is in Aquarius in the fourth house of family, meaning like my family life has definitely not been like cookie cutter, super perfect, normal upbringing. And so how that's going to continue to play out in my life is like interesting, right? Like it's very unconventional, especially in the sign of Aquarius. And then I had read that like with Saturn being in the fourth house, it's a cold placement to family. So like I've experienced two divorces. I feel like I have some estranged family, right? Like, I don't know how to explain it. I don't want to get too like deep and personal, but all I'll say is that it's pretty accurate. So see where Saturn lives in your chart if you experience a little bit more challenges or unconventionality, if that's a word. That could explain why. But I think what Saturn is supposed to do is like over time, it like gives you wisdom and maturity from those challenges and like teaches you how to really grow in that space. So I think what's going to be on brand for me in that way is that, yes, while I had an unconventional, more difficult kind of upbringing and home life, at the end of the day, I'm going to create a family structure that I want. Like what I didn't get, I'm going to give that to myself. That's like my Saturn coming full circle and teaching me through discipline and hard work that like I can grow from my challenges and give myself what I want. So that's Saturn. Um, what is next? This is definitely going to be two parts because even if, as I was like writing this episode out, I'm like, this is so long. There's so much information. Like, and even in my two episodes, I'm still only touching on like maybe half of it. Like it just keeps going. The more that I think I know, the more I find out I don't. Sorry, I'm jumping all over the place. Okay, next we have Uranus, however you want to pronounce it. This represents innovation, rebellion, sudden change, and individuality. It's the planet of revolution, breakthroughs, and shaking up the status quo. So change and disruption brings unexpected shifts, breakthroughs, and moments of awakening. Rebellion and freedom rejects limitations, rules, and traditions in favor of uniqueness. Innovation and technology governs progress, science, and futuristic ideas. Unpredictability and chaos. So, this energy is erratic, forcing growth through disruption. Higher consciousness and awakening brings sudden realizations and enlightenment. Uranus spends 7 years per sign and shapes generational shifts in society. So the outer planets like Saturn, no, sorry, not Saturn. Your inner planets are Mercury, Mars, Venus, Jupiter, and Saturn. Those are going to be very prevalent to you. Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto are more kind of generational planets. They do affect you on an individual level, but they kind of encompass their signs for like, because they stay in their signs for so long, it's more of like a generational energy. Um, and so it's all about embracing the unexpected and stepping into your true individuality. I guess this, for me, this one's a little bit more hard to explain because it's not necessarily like an inner planet that's more tied to personality. Like I said, it's kind of a collective generational planet, but it's still important because, again, where it falls in your chart based on the sign and the house is going to affect you on an individual level. So, in a generational way, I think Uranus was in Capricorn during that time. So I think that means like we are experiencing a lot of change and disruptions and unexpected events in our life, right? Like look how many we've experienced so far compared to other generations. So we may be feeling that like more prevalent or like in a different way, especially in the sign of Capricorn. It's like all these old structures are dismantling before our eyes, and we just have to get used to this like innovation and like change and disruption, and maybe even there's a little rebellion there too. So my Uranus is in Capricorn in the third house, surprise, surprise, because that's where all my planets decided to cluster. So then we have Neptune, which represents dreams, illusions, spirituality, intuition, and creativity. It's the planet of mysticism, higher consciousness, and unseen realms. So it governs imagination and creativity, rules artistic inspiration, music, poetry, and film. Spirituality and mysticism connects intuition, psychic abilities, and divine consciousness. Illusions and deception can bring confusion, escapism, and lack of clarity. Dreams and fantasy governs the subconscious, daydreaming, visionary ideas. Compassion and oneness represents unconditional love and dissolving ego boundaries. Addiction and escapism can manifest as avoidance, delusions, or self sacrifice. Where Neptune is placed shows where you may experience heightened intuition, creativity, or confusion. Neptune sits in a sign every 4 years, so it affects entire, again, generations, but warns against getting lost in illusion and themes. So it does invite you to tap into your intuition, creativity, and spirituality, but don't get so lost, right? Like, don't fall down the rabbit hole and become delulu. So again, Neptune is more of a generational planet because it sits in the same sign for 14 years. So mine's also in Capricorn in the third house, but I would be curious to like see what other people's are. Like that's why I love birth charts so much because every single one is so different. Like I never look at a birth chart and like I just could never get bored of it because it's so different to each and every person and like where the planets fall and what sign and what house and how it affects them. And like, even though it's generational, it still affects people on a different individual level. So I need to explore some of those outer planets more, to be honest. Like, I feel like I have a pretty good handle on the inners, but like the outers, like, I guess out of all of them, maybe Neptune and Uranus, I don't feel as connected to in my chart. So maybe I should explore that a little bit more. But it's interesting because, like, currently this year, a lot of the planets changed signs, especially the bigger planets where like they stay in the same sign for decades. So the fact that they change signs is huge. Like that means change is coming. It's going to affect everyone on a collective level. It's a sign of the times. And astrologers were like talking about this even last year. They're like, oh, 2025 is going to be like a disruptor year because all of these planets are changing signs. So like, for example, Neptune was in Pisces for 14 years. It just changed over into Aries at like the end of March. And the fact that it's in Aries is like super interesting. Also, Uranus is changing signs in like a week, like July 7th. So it's currently in Taurus, where it's been sitting for 7 years and is now going to move into Gemini. And they said that anytime, see, the thing with astrology that's interesting too is like if you look at like the energies that each planet is harnessing, and then you look at past patterns of how it's affected society as a whole, like it's it's eerie. There's patterns, right? So like astrologers were saying how anytime Uranus has been in Gemini, there's been like a huge war. So last time it was in the sign of Gemini, the Civil War took place. We literally just found out about like potential World War III. Like I'm not going to get into all that in politics. I'm merely just showing, like talking about what is being reflected in our reality right now. Also the fact that Neptune is in the planet of Aries, and Aries is the sign of war and action and like that warrior energy. It's just all being amplified, right? Because you have these big outer generational planets affecting the collective and what's happening in the world. Like, again, can't make this up. This is not coincidence. Sometimes I get a little nervous with the predictions because like I know that on some level this is true and it's going to happen and I have to like brace for impact, right? So yeah, I mean 2025 has definitely been a very interesting kind of disruptor year with all of these planets changing signs, and they all kind of happen at the same time too. Like each month a planet has shifted into a new sign, but it's like huge because the planet has been in the same sign for so long. So like again, Uranus is moving into Gemini. Neptune moved into Aries. Saturn moved into Aries. Jupiter's moving into Cancer. Like all of these shifted really around the same time. Um, so last but not least, Pluto, and some people are gonna say Pluto's not a planet, but I don't agree with that, okay? Like since when all of a sudden is Pluto not a planet? If it's in astrology, that means it is, and it's there for a reason. So as I mentioned earlier, Pluto represents transformation, power, rebirth, and the subconscious. It governs deep psychological changes, destruction for the sake of renewal, and hidden forces. So it represents cycles of death and renewal, forcing growth and change. So again, think of that like phoenix energy. It dies, but then it rises from the ashes. Power and control governs personal and collective power, manipulation, and authority dynamics. Subconscious and shadow work rules deep psychological processes, hidden fears, and suppressed emotions. Endings and beginnings brings destruction, but only to pave the way for something new. Obsession and intensity influences deep desires, obsession, and compulsive tendencies. Regeneration and healing pushes for profound emotional and spiritual evolution. Where Pluto is placed shows where you experience deep transformation, power struggles, and personal evolution, but it brings profound lessons in the areas of life it touches. It takes 12 to 30 years per sign. So it's a generational planet shaping collective experiences. Pluto's energy is intense, but ultimately leads to empowerment and rebirth. It forces you to confront what lies beneath the surface to emerge stronger. Um, so yeah, all I can keep saying is like that phoenix rising from the ashes or things that have to literally dissolve and be destructed in order to be destructed. Sorry, sometimes I just say words, like words come out of my mouth. I'm like, I don't know if that's a word. Um, Things have to be dismantled and destroyed in order for like new ways to be paid, for transformation to happen, for growth to happen. It's like all the stuff that comes to the surface that often gets